So, what is ECR? It stands for Efficient Consumer Response and is both a concept and an association. Our vision is transforming the way we work together to fulfill consumer wishes better, faster and at less cost. ECR Community is a network of 20 national initiatives across Europe with a broad and deep membership network of over 1,800 retailers, manufacturers and service providers. ECR aspires to being a flagship for collaboration, both internally between company departments and externally between trading partners. Our main focus areas are people development, enabling technologies, supply side, including supply chain, OSA, shrinkage and managing food waste, and demand side, including shopper marketing, digital and category management. Next slide, please. And it is ECR's history of association with category management that has us here today. ECR has been at the forefront of developments within category management since its inception. The initial 8-step approach to category management was released as an ECR Europe best practice book, and more recently, ECR's consumer and shopper journey framework advocated collaboration between advertisers, category managers and shopper marketers from both retailers and suppliers. However, we have a new disruptor firmly in play today in the form of online category management. We think it's far too early to be thinking of releasing a best practice approach to online category management due to obvious amount of change which will take place in this area over the coming years. However, we do think that ECR should play to its strengths with respect to our heritage within category management and considering the vast and experienced network of category managers within our membership. Hence, our proposal is to host this series of 3 webinars on the future of online category management. Next slide. In this first session, we will discuss tomorrow's category management today, how brands achieve their goals in a world without planograms and shelves. And the 2 subsequent sessions will be on availability in the online channel and content consideration and the online consumer. But note, please, there will be an opportunity to submit questions and to download the webinar, and we would be delighted to receive your feedback, advice and comments after the event. Next slide. So joining us for today's session are Daniel Corsten, who is Professor at IE Business School. Daniel is a renowned academic. He was editor of the ECR Journal and represented the ECR Academic Partnership on the ECR Europe Board from 2000 to 2005. His most recent research focuses on online category management. He will discuss important trends that are radically changing how brands and retailers need to work together to win mind and market share in the digital economy. Also with us today is Danny Silverman from Clavis Insight, who leads the product and corporate marketing team. Danny has over 14 years of experience in helping brands grow online. In this session, he will give some fundamentals on why traditional category management methods are flawed when applied to e-commerce and offer some solutions. So please enjoy the webinar. Listen intently. Do try to ignore those pesky emails while doing so. And over to you, Daniel.
Thanks, Declan. My name is Daniel Corsten. I am professor at IE Business School. I was involved with ECR from its beginnings in the 90s. It was a great success. Thousands of enthusiasts attended conferences, implemented collaborative projects, and overall it was a great spirit of collaboration. Obviously, implementation was sometimes slow. Next slides. More importantly, the global thrust of ECR ended before the digital era really took off. Luckily, there is still a lot of energy in the ECR national initiatives, so thanks for having me here. Next slide. Category management was an important pillar of ECR, but the analog processes and tools were cumbersome. Now they are outdated and they don't work for digital. At the same time, digital is reaching a tipping point. According to the IRI, the consumer product goods e-commerce share will be 5% by 2020 and 10% by 2022. So brands and retailers have to find new ways to collaborate to benefit from that growth in an otherwise low-digit growth environment. Next slide. Let's put the webinars into context. Brands need a growth strategy, and collaborative online category management is an important pillar. In an upcoming book, I will discuss 8 important changes, but today I will focus on 4. Please note that my choice of examples is perhaps not random, but it does not mean that I endorse everything, and more important, I do not say that these are the best cases. As a matter of fact, if you have a good case in your company, we would love to hear about it. So the 4 things I will talk about are intent, from shrinking to glory, to managing for growth, from category management to item profitability, from product supply to consumer direct, and as the outlook from packaged goods to consumer ecosystems. Next slide. Next slide, please. As a first thing, brands need to change their mindset and strategy from shrinking to glory to managing for growth. We know shoppers are changing. Millennials, mobile first, omni-channel retail is here to stay. On the other side, retail is in turmoil. On the one hand, we wake up almost daily to read about yet another disruptive innovation by, for instance, Amazon. But also Tmall, and in Europe, we have a bunch of very interesting retailers that are very innovative as well. On the other hand, bricks and mortar retail is in an unprecedented crisis. Then newcomer brands are threatening incumbent brands that are not only experiencing slow growth, but also this new competition by what they call digital native vertical brands. Overall, in traditional retail, sales are flat and many brands have missed their sales forecasts. But instead of looking for new growth, many of them have resorted to cost cutting and trying to manage earnings by increasing profitability with yet another round of cost cutting. Next slide. But cost cutting and managing for profit to please shareholders is not a long-term strategy. Digital innovation and consumer focus, however, are. Now, a little bit more specific to online category management, I see 3 trends. Danny will talk about this in detail, but in a digital world, brands need less inventory to ensure distribution at launch. In bricks and mortar, retail investments were immense, and many small brands could not afford to push products into the channel. Today, a small brand can create a cult brand, innovative, with social media communication, wait for the demand to pull, and then pull the products from contract manufacturers. Second, category management was, let's be honest, often about grouping products. The more shelf space a brand commanded, the stronger was the visual impact and therefore its sales. But Walmart and Amazon search engines show only the products that are profitable and popular for them. The others are, I will explain this in more detail, they are not profitable. As a matter of fact, at Amazon, they are called crap, cannot realize any product. And these are the products that Amazon considers for deletion. Amazon ranks them down or delists them. Unfortunately, this is true for many slow-moving variants. So the old idea of cross-subsidizing variants to block shelf space is dead. Finally, watch out. Amazon's fastest-growing segment is not the first-party retail inventory model where most CPG brands are, but the marketplace, the third-party marketplace, similar to Rakuten and Tmall in other parts of the world. Next slide. Increasingly, digital native vertical brands steal market share from established brands. Brands can build their own direct brands or buy one that's successfully scaled. 2 examples. Dollar Shave Club is the most popular example, but Unique has been very innovative with a direct model that has successfully challenged other beauty products. They identified an important problem and solved it in an innovative way. Both were recently valued at $1 billion and bought by Unilever and Coty. But there are 2 other related trends. Amazon increasingly sells private label, and this is a form of reverse vertically integrated direct sales. I also know that sales from brands' own websites increases for high involvement products. So knowledge about online category management is important for all these new channels and brands as well. Next slide. Now, let me pull all the pieces together. Business-to-business markets always knew that a product is not just the score and that consumers expect service layers around it. For the typical CPG product, service layers were simply too costly to build. Luckily, important services such as logistics, presentation, and advice were fulfilled by trusted retail partners. Digital has now dramatically lowered the cost of service and engagement to the point that in future, brands will not only provide packaged goods, but will create consumer ecosystems with apps, services, and connected products. Among the many examples, Milo of Nestle stands out with its engagement for healthy kids that includes apps, games, and competition. But all brands are working on these kind of digital ecosystems, and it's just a matter of time until the world of consumer goods has changed, and we are actually at the point where we do not sell packaged goods, but consumer ecosystems. The old marketing adage is truer than ever. Consumers do not want products, they want solutions. And these digital solutions will be delivered in partnership with retail and other service providers. I would like to hand over to Danny now. Thank you.
Great. Declan and Daniel, thank you very much. We're very excited to be here today, and thank you for inviting us. We've been talking about the topic of online category management as it's fundamental to Clavis Insight and the technology services that we provide to our customers. And so we're excited to share with you today a little bit about how we approach online category management and a new, very exciting framework that we've developed to help make the process even easier to wrap your arms around and build a framework for how to build best practices. Next slide. As has already been highlighted already on the call, our roots in the physical store, in brick and mortar, around the 4-foot shelf. And this is what we really understand very well. Unfortunately, growth is harder and harder to find. It's increasingly competitive, increasingly to find more than single-digit growth. And so most manufacturers now have put at least some amount, if not significant amounts of resources into understanding the online channel and taking advantage of the rapid growth that is happening in that space. Next slide. The challenge it presents, which Daniel already highlighted, is that there's a different way of selling online versus offline. In the old way, if you will, in brick and mortar, it's a push model. In digital, mobile, e-commerce, the new way is pull, and I'll explain what I mean by that. In the physical store, we're very accustomed to pushing out displays, shelf tags, promotions, different vehicles and tools to interrupt the shopper's trip and attract them to your product to make a purchase. Unfortunately, and that's the push model. Unfortunately, online, that doesn't exist as readily, and there's a lot more work that's required to get the shopper to find your product. It becomes a pull environment where you need to pull the shopper into your products in order to get them to consider it for purchase. Next slide. And what that ultimately means is that while every online retailer and every brick and mortar with an online website is still selling as we might think of traditional retail, and you can build the slide out 2 more, please. At the end of the day, what this means is that every item must stand on its own. What I mean by that is when the shopper is shopping for their products, at the end of their decision process, they're looking at a product detail page. What's on that product detail page will ultimately determine whether or not they make the purchase, and as well as whether they even found it in the first place. Even if you have a shopping list, subscription programs, at some point there was a discovery process that involved the product detail page. And so rather than thinking about that 4-foot shelf that the shopper walks up to and can use all kinds of different visual cues to understand the premium products to the store brand or private label products, in e-commerce it becomes every item for itself. Next slide, please. Now, to make this even more difficult, e-commerce is the easiest store check to conduct. And what I mean by that is if you're used to the world of doing physical store audits, you might visit 1 store, 5 stores, 10 stores. Maybe you have a program where there's 100 stores being visited a month to check for things like price and promotions, displays being set up. When it comes to e-commerce, anybody can do that store check. And if there's anybody on the call today who has some responsibility for e-commerce, likely is the case that you've had an email, a call, or somebody come by your office, usually an executive, who's been to a retailer's website and asked a question like, where's our best product?